You're listening to the Morning Punch-In Show with RB and Jae, live and direct from more cities than an Instagram model's bio. Get ready for some boxing talk on the clock. Let's face it, you're not working and somebody's got to pay for the Wi-Fi.
Good morning, everybody. It is RB and Jae. This is the Morning Punch-In Show, special edition today, Wednesday, September 13th, 2017. Our guest on the Hotline Bling today is celebrated boxing judge and HBO analyst Harold Lederman. Man, Harold has been with HBO since 1986. He's been with them ever since. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2016. We are so fortunate to have him on today. We're going to talk about all things Canelo Golovkin today. We want to take your preview and your predictions. Make sure you call 718-508-9852. Let me properly introduce my partner in crime, creator and founder of BadCulture.net, contributor for BSO Online, Jay LaBeouf. What's good, Jay?
What's good, RB? And good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. The show that's so nice we had to do it twice. We are going to talk about Canelo Triple G today. Looking forward to talking to Harold Lederman and hearing from you and your predictions for what could potentially be the greatest fight of the year. So looking forward to it, RB. And good to be with you for a second time this week.
Yes, this fight was just too big not to have a special edition show. There's so much to talk about with Canelo and Golovkin and breaking it down and previewing it and giving our authentic take and predictions. We're going to take some callers today. Not only do we want to play Know It or Blow It, which is brought to you by BoxingInsider.com, but we also want to take your predictions, and we want to know how excited you guys are about this big fight. Me and Jay, we leave tomorrow morning to head to Las Vegas, and we're going to be posted up, and we're going to try to bring you guys the best stuff, the funniest moments, all the tea, the word on the curb, all that good stuff. Before we get started and bring on Jake Donovan, Jay, why don't we take a super quick commercial break, and we're going to come back with Jake Donovan for Jake's take, and we're going to talk about just how important Canelo Golovkin is and what an integral part of boxing history the middleweight division has always been. We'll be right back.
The greatest moments have always been when the best fight the best. Pay attention. History is about to repeat itself. Canelo versus Golovkin, Saturday, September 16, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific, live on pay-per-view.
For all the latest news, interviews, and boxing schedules, visit BoxingInsider.com, providing readers with everything from the latest fight schedules to interviews with your favorite boxers. BoxingInsider.com has you covered from top to bottom. BoxingInsider.com is looking for new writers. Think you have what it takes to join the team? Submit your articles to our team at info@BoxingInsider.com. Visit BoxingInsider.com today, the only boxing website where you become the fifth man in the corner. You're rocking with the Morning Punch-In Show with RB and Jae, and now it's time for Jake's Take.
Yes, she.
Gets me every time.
Good morning, big. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, it's a little bit afternoon for me, but good morning to both of you.
All right, big fight week. Canelo Golovkin is in 3 days, and we want to talk to you and get your take on just how important this fight is in reviving the middleweight division.
Yeah, it's funny. This time last year, it seemed like the boxing community was just angry that this fight wasn't happening. But in retrospect, it probably is happening right, at the very right time. I mean, especially considering the event that happened 3 weeks ago. It's all anyone talks about. Now we actually have a true boxing event that boxing fans can talk about, because they didn't talk about anything else that happened August 26th other than the main event, and that sadly dominated the headlines for the past few weeks. We've been waiting to hear about the live gate. We've been waiting to hear about the pay-per-view numbers. Now we have the fight that we've been waiting for a year. It's happened, and it truly is the biggest true boxing fight of the year, of 2017. And as far as middleweights go, I mean, the middleweight division, it seems like, Gennady's kind of carried it. There's been other middleweights playing along, but they haven't quite jumped in the ring with them. So this fight is like the perfect storm because Canelo, at this time, everyone now believes he's a, however small of an underdog he is, he's a very live underdog. Whereas a year ago, they're like, oh, Gennady's going to throw him. And with that being the mindset, why would Golden Boy want to, proceed with the fight at that time? Now everyone thinks it's close to a 50-50 fight, which makes the fight all the more special. So, I mean, I know a lot of people that are actually picking Canelo to win. Maybe I will once we get to our predictions. But, this wasn't the case a year ago. I mean, so the middleweight division, it's always been like, right in between heavyweight and welterweight. The heavyweights, they were always the story division. The welterweights, they had the speed. But the middleweights were like the perfect combination. They had power, kind of like heavyweights, but they had the speed, kind of like welterweights. So it was like the perfect prototype for a boxer, which is why, the boxing world has always been fascinated with the middleweight division. And some of the greatest fighters in history have fought at middleweight. Sugar Ray Robinson, he's considered the greatest welterweight of all time. But he really made his mark in the business when he became, truly pound for pound the best, when he started, going back and forth with all these guys where he's given away a massive size advantage. And then you just go through Carlos Monzon, Marvin Hagler, Bernard Hopkins, and now, we got Gennady Golovkin, who's threatening to break a record. So it's like there's always been so much history with the middleweight division. So, and that's why this fight is so important, because you have the two best middleweights in the world fighting. And whoever wins this has a very great claim to claim that he's the best fighter in the world.
A year ago, you're right. I think a year ago, this fight was probably anywhere between 80-20, 70-30. And I think people were really swaying towards Golovkin. And I agree with you. I think this is very 50-50 today. I think a year later, it's a 50-50 fight.
It is. And what's funny with Gennady, I mean, he's so close to the record, but we still really can't discuss where he belongs in middleweight history because, maybe not entirely through any fault of his own. He just hasn't had the competition to justify, is he as good as Bernard Hopkins or Carlos Monzon? Yeah, he's racking up the defenses and he's fighting the guys in front of him. But there really hasn't been any wins to say, this guy belongs among the top 5 or top 10 middleweights of all time. I don't know how close, beating Canelo is going to push him close to that list, but at least it's a meaningful win. And it's coming on the heels of the toughest, test of his career when he survived, whatever Danny Jacobs had to offer. So on the flip side, if Canelo wins, he's without a doubt. I mean, he's probably already the biggest active star in the sport today, being that Floyd is, once again retired. If Canelo wins, now we're talking about where he belongs in the history of the greatest Mexican fighters of all time. And again, I'm going to go back to saying, if Canelo wins, he's pound for pound the very best fighter in the sport. Because his resume really has been second to none. He kind of, screwed the pooch a little bit last year. He was kind of waiting for this moment, taking fights where, everyone knew he was going to win. But before that, he had a stellar resume. Even with the loss to Floyd, he still took on the very best in the world. And that's the only loss on his record. He beat a lot of good guys along the way, including Cotto, to become the first Mexican ever to win the lineal middleweight championship. And now he's going to take on the one middleweight that, the boogeyman. Nobody wanted to fight. And if he beats him, Canelo's career he's already the biggest star. He just goes to an entirely different stratosphere. Canelo's going to be, he can name his price for any fight he wants. A lot of guys are going to be on the very wrong end of the negotiating table with him if he wins this fight, and rightly so. But and what's funny, I know a lot of people are actually rooting for that to happen because they feel, Canelo can really carry the sport if he wins. Whereas if Gennady wins, there's still a little bit of a language barrier. He's still a little bit goofy when he, God bless him. I love his English, but there's still a little bit of a language barrier. Canelo, it's almost like he doesn't need to speak English. He's just the appeal he has in Mexico, and which is crossed over to North America. I mean, he's a true pay-per-view star. Gennady's not. That's the big difference. Maybe Gennady can be, especially, if he wins, if the next fight will be to tie Bernard Hopkins' record. So, that adds some allure. But, Canelo's already there. A win like this, I mean, it's like he's just, a worldwide superstar. Not even just a boxing superstar, a worldwide superstar.
You're right. I mean, and again, this is why we love Jake's take, because I didn't even look at it like that. Let's say Golovkin does win, okay? How does he carry the sport? I mean, I think that we know that Canelo can carry the sport. He's Mexican. He's with Golden Boy. There's just all these marketable things about him. And, if I don't know, Jay, what do you think about that? If Golovkin wins, can he carry our sport? Can he become this big pay-per-view star?
That's a really great question. Like Jake alluded to, first there's the language thing, because he is a fighter that has built his home in the United States. It'd be different if he was still living overseas and coming in as a killer like Klitschko would, but Klitschko had pretty impeccable English. What is the next step of leveling up for him if he does win? We know he's endorsed and sponsored, but what can he really do outside of performance in the ring that will really resonate with fans? You know, he's made it a little clear indirectly in interviews that when he's not into doing a whole lot of talking to the media. He doesn't understand why people are so curious about him, the man. But it's just part of the sport. With Canelo, the man is beloved in the street. So that's a very good question. I don't know what he can do. Honestly, short of, you know, going to more events and talking to more people, doing more interviews, learning more English, since this is the place where he's built his home. Maybe he wants to learn to speak Spanish. Since he's focused so much stuff on Mexican style in his career, how come he doesn't speak Spanish? We know he probably understands some, talking to Abel. I'd like to see Golovkin speak a little Spanish. That could be the kicker right there.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. You know, I want to draw one more parallel, too, because, you know, I want to go back to, and I hate remembering this fight because Felix Trinidad is my favorite fighter of all time. But when he fought Bernard Hopkins, you got to think about just how different the sport would have been at that point had Felix Trinidad won. Had Trinidad beaten Bernard Hopkins, he undoubtedly could have carried the sport. Roy Jones was already waiting in the wings. He wanted to fight Felix Trinidad next, and that was supposed to be the fight that was going to happen then, as opposed to when it did in 2008, when Tito was, you know, fat and happy and basically one fight out of retirement. But Bernard Hopkins won the fight, and he didn't necessarily carry the sport. In fact, you know, everyone argued he won the lottery, but never really cashed the ticket. You know, he broke the record, but nobody really seemed to care. And I think that, you know, Gennady I think is a lot more popular now than Bernard was then. But him tying and breaking the record, I don't think is going to have as much appeal as opposed to Canelo winning this fight and then just doing whatever the hell he wants the next fight. No matter what Canelo does the next fight, if he wins here, everyone's going to be paying attention to his next move.
I kind of smiled because I thought, you know, if Canelo does win, right, who would he fight next? I mean, let's say he comes back and fights in December or early 2018. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, he could fight.
Maybe we'll finally get Billy Joe Saunders stateside.
Yeah, I mean,
no matter who wins the fight.
And I think Billy Joe would much rather. I think a lot of middleweights would much rather fight Canelo. I mean, you know, because they probably see him as a more beatable fighter. You know, even if he were to beat Gennady, but he's obviously the much bigger payday as well. So, you know, Billy Joe Saunders would absolutely love that payday. Plus, that's a fight it'd be for 3 belts, and Canelo's not fighting for the WBC belt. But, you know, I mean, it almost doesn't matter at that point. I mean, Canelo could win this fight, dump every belt, and, you know, his next fight would still be huge. He could have a rematch with Cotto. I mean, Cotto is claiming he wants the winner. He could fight David Lemieux. I mean, there's a lot of options for him next.
Yeah.
Whereas if Gennady wins, he's looking at, you know, mandatory, you know, defenses for his, you know, his record tying and record breaking win. And, you know, Gennady loves to keep the belt, so he's going to honor those.
Yeah. So before we give our predictions on this fight and go into prediction wars, let's talk about the middleweight division and how it's been such an integral part of boxing history.
Well, I mean, yeah, like I mentioned earlier, it's just, you know, with the heavyweight division, it was almost like an attraction. It was like, you know, they always said, you know, there's boxing and then there's the heavyweight division. So that was like it's almost its own sport. So the sport, you know, the light heavyweights really never got to shine, I guess, because they were seen as, you know, a lesser version of the heavyweights. The middleweights, like I said, they're just the prototypical boxer. And then you look at the greatest fighters in boxing history, a lot of them, you know, were either true middleweights or they, you know, they wound up in the middleweight division. You know, the Fab Four in the 80s, I mean, they all ended up touching the middleweight division. You know, Marvin Hagler stayed there his entire career. Sugar Ray Leonard went up there. And, you know, that fight, the fight with Leonard and Hagler, when you talk about debatable decisions, that's probably number one as far as, you know, the fight that people still disagree on to this very day. I mean, 30 years later, that's probably the most discussed, debatable decision, you know, at least in modern history, if not all, you know, of all time. I mean, because it's just a fight. Nobody can seem to agree, you know, who won the fight. You know, like I said, Sugar Ray Robinson, he cleaned out welterweight. Then he decided to give away size advantage, you know, moving up to middleweight. And not only, you know, did that, you know, elevate him to the absolute best fighter of all time, but all the guys that kind of fought with him, they all ended up going into the Hall of Fame almost because they were part of that era. You know, a lot of those guys, you know, I'm not sure they would have been Hall of Fame fighters without Sugar Ray Robinson being a part of the middleweight division. But because they competed in his era, they all wound up going in. You know, much like a lot of the guys in the Muhammad Ali era, you know, ended up going into the Hall of Fame, whereas they're not necessarily Hall of Famers. But, I mean, that's the appeal Sugar Ray had, you know, at welterweight and then especially at middleweight. But, you know, then Marvin Hagler just, you know, dominating the 80s, you know, up until the debatable decision with Sugar Ray. And then, Bernard Hopkins, finally coming along. And, it took him, until his mid-30s before people finally started paying attention. But he forced the boxing world to pay attention just because, he refused to, let the industry get the best of him. And, as he always came into the ring, he did it his way. So, that's kind of been missing the past few years, I guess, because Gennady has just been without a peer. Jermaine Taylor never really carried the torch. It's like he had that, he's an Al Heyman puppet. People really didn't gravitate to him, especially the way he won the title in controversial fashion and never really sat well. And people, I don't think, appreciated Jermaine up until when he lost, when he got knocked out. He almost knocked out Kelly Pavlik, but then, he ended up getting flattened. And if you remember, after Floyd Mayweather beat Oscar De La Hoya, the sport kind of, I don't want to say flatlined, but it was like it really lacked interest. And that fight wound up reviving boxing. It was like we went through like a dead summer period and like nothing really going on up until late September when Pavlik and Jermaine Taylor just lit up Atlantic City. And then from there, we just had an absolutely kick-ass end to 2007. That all happened, with the middleweight championship being at stake. So, now we're right back at that moment. I feel like, we're waiting. This has been such a good year. The summer it's been good, not great, but this is a fight that really sets the table for, the fall and winter and just, making sure 2017 ends on a very high note.
Ooh,
especially if the winner comes back in December. Yeah, I mean, if Canelo wins and then he decides he wants one more fight this year, Gennady's usually pretty good about that. So, if the winner comes back in December, I mean, that just makes this year even greater. And, it's also the matchup, too. I don't see either one of them playing it safe. So, and that's always been the thing with middleweights. There hasn't been a lot of dead middleweight fight. As far as, like, big middleweight events, they usually deliver.
All right. Well, look, you almost started getting into your prediction there, so let's kind of roll into prediction wars now, and let's give our preview, our predictions. I want to kind of spit a few notes out there, though, before me, you, and Jay get into our own predictions. There's some notes that, have come out this week in case you missed it. Lara got injured yesterday. He's no longer fighting Jojo Diaz. Jojo Diaz is now going to fight Rafael Rivera on the card, so that kind of sucks. If Golovkin does lose to Canelo, the WBC middleweight title will be vacant. So in case you missed it, in case you forgot, in case that went over your head, if Golovkin does lose to Canelo, the WBC middleweight title will be vacant because Canelo don't want it. He's like, I don't want that belt.
Damn your title.
Golovkin this week said, my whole career I've been denied fights. It ends on Saturday. Canelo is preparing to knock out Golovkin. Abel Sanchez is saying Canelo's corner is going to say no mas. Okay, so there's some heated words coming out this week. It was funny because this week Golovkin said, this is a real Mexican fight, and I have Mexican blood. And the next press release, Canelo's like, no, you don't. You don't have Mexican blood. Like, stop saying that shit. Like, it's corny. Like, leave it alone. So there's a lot of good fighting words. The promotion has really picked up this week compared to the last few weeks, and I do feel that, maybe Mayweather and McGregor had a lot to do with it. Jake, what's your take on the promotion of the fight?
I mean, it could have been a lot stronger. I mean, a lot has been made of it. I don't want to beat on it because this is fight week and we want to be positive about the event. But I mean, the consensus is that, why was Oscar De La Hoya so obsessed with just talking about Mayweather? I get that he's asked the questions, but, again, you don't have to go in this whole rant. No comment is just – that could end the conversation right there. I got my own event on September 16th. I don't want to talk about that event. Instead, Oscar just, became – he power tweeted and just went ballistic. And just even after the fight, he still became – he's just so consumed with, the manner in which Floyd Mayweather – I get it. There's a lot of bad blood between them. But, I mean, just focus. You have the biggest, event. I mean – but the boxing media is kind of to blame, too, because the headline still remains about Mayweather-McGregor. Nobody really started picking up the ball on August 27th. It's almost like everyone kind of waited for fight week to come along before they really went all in. So,
and that's why we felt that this show was necessary for Canelo Golovkin. This is a real boxing fight. It's a real pay-per-view fight. There's no circus. It's going to be one for the books. So, listen, the judges were also approved and chosen. They've got Bird, Moretti, and Trella. We got, what's his name? Kenny Bayless is the referee. We're going to talk to Harold Lederman more about the judges and the ref and stuff like that. But let's jump right in it. Who wants to go first? Who wants to break down and give their official prediction? Jay or Jake?
I'll go first.
I'll go.
All right.
Go, Jakey. Go, Jakey.
It's funny you mentioned the judges because for people who are picking Golovkin, if they're not picking him by knockout, they should really be worried. I mean, because I'm just seeing the three names. I'm not going to single any of them out, but it has split decision written all over it because I don't think they're – well, I'm not going to say that. I'm going to back off.
Don't do it,
If
Jake.
it goes to the scorecards, I mean, if it's going to go to the scorecards, it's going to be a shame because I don't think the judges will get it right.
Of course not.
As far as my prediction, it seems we're getting a lot of talk from the Golovkin camp, and I don't know. It's just I know it's not Gennady, but I don't know if it's like his team feels like they have to talk. And I know Abel never turns down an interview. His thing is that he doesn't go looking for interviews, but he never turns one down either. But it's like they just seem to be doing a lot of talking that's really out of character with Gennady. Now all of a sudden they're talking about the sparring session that they did. When they filmed, the two of them in the ring, they had like five fake fights or whatever, and that Gennady had to take it easy on him because the camera crew was getting upset. I'm like, I don't put any stock into that, and I don't know why they do either. I don't know if they're just trying to, catch a headline or two, but the thing I'm looking at is Canelo. He's coming in with a lot of pride in this fight. I mean, Bernard Hopkins is a stakeholder in Golden Boy Promotions. He owns the middleweight record, with 20 title defenses. Right. If Gennady beats Canelo, his next fight would tie the record because you got to assume whoever he fights, he probably will beat. I don't think Canelo is going to allow that to happen. I think Canelo is going to, defend the house. I think he's, for the past year, figured out the best possible way to beat Gennady Golovkin, and he believes Gennady is at a point where he can execute that game plan. Stylistically, I would favor Gennady, but I'm going to really flip the script because I haven't, felt this way up until really the past week or so. But I'm going to pick Canelo by 11th round knockout. I think he's going to end up breaking down Gennady. Gennady's going to try to go after him early. He's going to realize that Canelo's not going anywhere. Canelo's going to pick up on that. He's going to pick up steam late in the fight. I think he's going to break him down and stop him.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let me write this down.
Be bold. Yeah. Jake must have had a Tecate before he got on the phone today.
That is my boxing. I will say, if it's not rum and coke, Tecate is my beer of choice when I do watch a fight. That's replaced Corona. But, that'll probably be the boldest prediction I make in 2017. Canelo, 11
All right. All right, Jay, you go for it. Break it down.
Wow. How do I follow that? Well, when you look at the fight, when you look at their two fights, what I always fall back on when I look at Canelo and Triple G is their past opposition and how they've leveled up since then. Triple G has been kind of steamrolling through everybody, and it was only until a Daniel Jacobs that we saw a little bit of chink in the armor, and not because Danny Jacobs is the most powerful guy, but just because he is a bigger guy, and he brought a little bit more to the table than some of his previous opponents. So with that, we go over to Canelo, who in his previous fights, the fight that was most competitive to him was the fight against Erislandy Lara, where I still think Canelo lost that fight against Erislandy Lara. Don't jump in my mentions. That's how I feel. With that being said, they're pretty much on even par, in my opinion. Well, I'll give him the Cotto fight. Cotto was a competitive fight, but Cotto was substantially smaller than him. That being said, I'm going to go the opposite way from Jakey, and I think that Triple G is going to win by split decision. I think it's going the distance. I don't think that there's going to be a knockout. I think they're two formidable guys. I think stylistically in spurts it's going to be a nightmare because they all both like to walk down and trap, and I don't think it's going to be the firefight that people are expecting to see. And that's my prediction. I'm going with Triple G by split decision with Adelaide Bird making the jacked up score. I'm going to say it.
Jay names names.
I name names.
All right. All right. Okay, so look, guys, for me, there are so many variables. The judges, everybody knows Golovkin starts slow. Everybody knows Canelo likes to fight in spurts. Then there's Penny Bayless. Then there's so many variables to this fight. Golovkin has wiped out the entire middleweight division. But then you look at Canelo, and he fought some great names. Floyd Mayweather, Trout, Lara, Cotto, Smith, Kirkland, Fine, Chavez. I mean, his resume is pretty deep. When we look at ring IQ, somebody's pretty loud there. Jake, is that you?
Oh, it might be. I'm sorry.
Okay. When you look at ring IQ, Canelo's got a much, I think, in-depth ring IQ, but Golovkin's power is huge. You know, he really goes for the kill. He's very clever. He's accurate. You know, his weakest area is probably his defense. Then I look at Canelo, and he's got great combinations, and he really puts his punches together, and he's a good counter puncher. They both look ready to go. I don't think either one of them are very hard to figure out. And in my opinion, it's going to come down to two things. Can Canelo take Golovkin's punches? Golovkin has real power, yo. Like, he has real power, and he wants to wreck shit. You know, so can Canelo take the power, and can Canelo not get tired? I think we all know that as the fight goes on, he seems to gas out a little bit. So if he's conditioned and he cannot get tired and he can take those punches, I'm picking Canelo by split decision.
Woo! This is going to be great. Hey, maybe we should do a little side bet. You guys want to do a side bet? Okay, you guys are both on the same side with Canelo. So if Canelo defeats Triple G on Saturday night, I will change my avatar to a picture of Canelo for a week and put some Mexican flags in my bio description for a week. If Triple G defeats Canelo, you guys have to spontaneously say Mexican style a couple times a day for the next week.
Okay. That's
challenge accepted. Yep.
Yeah. All right, Jake Donovan, thank you for joining us on this Wednesday morning. We appreciate you so much. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we're going to come back and get with Harold Lederman.
When the mind is ready, the body prepares for war. So next time you engage in battle, protect your hands with the best. War Tape, the original branded tape. Order yours now at wartapebrand.com and see why the enemy will fear you. wartapebrand.com. We put hands on you. Champs Boxing Club and Fitness, bringing the city of Danbury a safe, clean, and professional boxing gym. Located on 128 East Liberty Street, Champs Boxing Club offers you more than 5 trainers who are all either current or former professional and amateur boxers. Look us up online at champsboxingclub.org for a full description on membership rates, discounts, and more about our facility. Also, check us out on social media at Champs Danbury. If you're ready to join, send us an email at cbcdanbury@gmail.com, and we'll get right back to you. Or swing by and visit. We look forward to you joining our team. Come see what all the buzz is all about here at Champs in Danbury, Connecticut. Any vehicle, any age, any mileage. With Nationwide Auto Warranties, you will stop paying unexpected costly repair bills and let an extended auto warranty pay. Go to nationwideautowarranties.com for an instant email quote or call 1-866-352-4999 for a free, no-obligation phone quote. So stop paying and let Nationwide Auto Warranties get you your coverage today. Again, that number is 1-866-352-4999 or visit nationwideautowarranties.com.
Boy, I like that Champs Danbury commercial. Hey, it's kind of
right. I was going to say, shout out to all of our sponsors. Today's show is brought to you by theboxinginsider.com, Porter High Performance Center, NationwideAutoWarranties.com, Champs Boxing Club, War Tape Brand, Bernie's Boxing, Red Beach Advisors, and WBC Cares. Obviously, we're doing something right over here because everybody wants to get on the morning punching show.
On it. Riding with
on
it. Every week. Love it.
That's right.
All right. We have a couple minutes before Harold joins us. We got about 2 minutes before we dial him in. And I just want to throw this out there. I read this before we jumped on the line. RB and I talked about it a little bit before we went live. Why is Jamie Foxx playing Mike Tyson in a movie? And which version of Mike Tyson is he going to be playing? I don't know if you listeners caught that headline this morning. I saw it on Boxing Scene before we jumped on live on the air. What do you think? Do you think that Jamie might be doing the Mike Tyson that's doing the one-man show? He can't possibly be doing a competitive career Mike Tyson, can he? He's too slow.
I don't know. Damn, I haven't heard that.
That's crazy. That's crazy. But with that, it looks like it's time for our guest to join us. So I'm going to dial him in, RB.
All right, sounds good. So excited to have Harold on today. Oh, my God.
I know. He is awesome. Let's dial him in. Yes, we have his phone.
Oh.
Harold Lederman.
Yes.
Good morning,
It's
and
me.
thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us this morning. We've been looking really forward to talking to you today about some Canelo Triple G. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you. How about yourself?
I'm excellent. Thank you. Before we start and jump into the specifics of the fight and what's going to happen, I wanted to pose this question to you, Harold. What do you love about the Canelo versus Triple G fight, and what could go terribly wrong with this fight?
Well, nothing is going to go wrong. I love the fact that it's two really good middleweights against each other. I mean, it's a sensational fight. I mean, you got two guys that won almost 80 fights between the two of them, and only one loss, and that was Canelo's loss to Floyd Mayweather. So it's a great fight, great matchup. It should be sensational.
Is this a good fight stylistically? When we look at the two of them, they both like to walk down and trap. How does this fight match up stylistically to you, in your opinion?
Well, Gennady Golovkin should be the bigger guy, the bigger, stronger guy, and he's got to keep Canelo backing up. On the other hand, Canelo's a counterpuncher, and he's going to have to try and counterpunch, and he's going to have to try and land his left jab constantly like he does.
We know that this is an important time in boxing, and this is potentially the fight of the year. We have two really competitive middleweights who are at the top of the division. How important is this fight to boxing?
Well, without doubt, it's important to boxing. I mean, everybody's looking at this fight. People are going to buy the pay-per-view that aren't even fight fans, I mean, it should be a sensational fight. I mean, it will be a sensational fight. There's no question, I think people are really going to enjoy it. I think the pay-per-view numbers are going to be very good because of the fact that not only are all the boxing fans going to buy the pay-per-view if they can't get to the fight, I think you're going to get an enormous amount of fans who have just been reading about it saying, I really want to see this fight. I don't particularly like boxing, but I like Canelo Alvarez against Gennady Golovkin. So, I think that it means a lot to boxing because you're going to get the whole world looking at it, I mean, so many people are really anticipating a great fight, and they're anticipating, a night of entertainment Saturday night, Without question, I think that a lot of people are just going to jump all over this fight.
I think so too. We were talking earlier about the judges and the referee, and there's so many variables in this fight with Golovkin's power, and then you got Canelo, who his resume is so stacked with names like Mayweather and Trout and Cotto and Kirkland and Khan, and they're both just very clever and they're both very skillful. And I think it almost comes down to, can Canelo take Golovkin's power? I think that we know that Golovkin likes to wreck people, and we know he has a good chin, so it's really intriguing.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Gennady Golovkin's been a middleweight his entire life. On the other hand, Canelo Alvarez has been a junior middleweight most of his life. So it's the Golovkin power against the Canelo skill, and that's the thing. Canelo's going to have to be able to deal with Golovkin's power and the fact that he wears you down and stays on top of you and he hits so hard. This is stuff that Canelo's going to have to deal with.
Yeah. So Harold, you've been with HBO since 1986. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
You've been with HBO since 1986?
I just didn't hear you. So you asked me about HBO?
Yeah, I think I've read that you've been with HBO since 1986.
Yeah, I've been with HBO since March 1986.
Do you miss judging?
Well, yeah, I stopped judging in 2011. Sure, I miss it. There's no question. But, hey, listen, you got to do what you got to do. I was judging fights, where I had too many of the fighters were fighting on HBO. So, it was a conflict of interest. So, in 2011, I got out of judging, left the judging to my daughter, Julie.
I love Julie. She actually came to one of my brunches in New York, and I think it's amazing to see women in boxing. I'm a big advocate for those that are involved, and Julie's a sweetheart. But, back to judging. I want to know, what's the worst decision that you've ever seen, Harold? The worst decision you've ever seen?
Well, there's absolutely no doubt about it. It was years ago at the Spectrum in Philadelphia. Russell Peltz said that he wanted to put on a world title fight before he was 30 years old, and he had a fighter named Tyrone Everett, really good fighter, southpaw, fighting Alfredo Escalera. I guess it was for the junior lightweight title. Escalera was the champion. And, it was a 15-round fight. I was sitting there maybe 10 rows back, and I gave Alfredo Escalera 5 rounds out of the 15, and maybe that was leaning for Escalera, giving him 5 rounds. Everett beat the daylights out of him, and Escalera got the decision. It was absolutely awful, and it still is the worst decision I ever saw in my life. I mean, really terrible.
Well, I know that Russell Peltz is a big fan of yours. He reminisces with me all the time about your days with Flash Gordon and Johnny Boss and Don Majeski and Russell Peltz, the good old days. Can you talk to us about those days?
I'm sorry, what did you say about Johnny Boss and Flash Gordon?
I was saying that Russell Peltz talks very fondly of you and about your days with Flash Gordon.
Yeah, well,
Boss.
we sort of grew up together, Flash and Boz and Russell and Bruce Trampler and the top-ranked matchmaker now. I mean, we used to hang around on 8th Avenue before the fights at the Felt Forum in Madison Square Garden, and really, we just grew up together. There's no doubt about it.
That's really cool. So then tell us, we got our worst decision that you've ever seen. What are some of the greatest fights that you've ever judged, the ones that really stand out to you, the ones that you'll remember forever?
Well, the greatest fight I ever saw, that I ever judged, I guess was in the, let me think, I guess maybe the 70s. It was the current reigning WBC super bantamweight champion Wilfredo Gomez from Puerto Rico against the current reigning bantamweight champion from Mexico, Lupe Pintor. It was 2 current reigning world champions against each other. And, I mean, they absolutely killed each other for 14 rounds. And in the 14th round, Pintor went down and Arthur McCanty counted him out. Just an absolutely incredible fight. I never saw another fight like that. I mean, Gaddy Ward was close, but my God, Pintor and Gomez went at it like it was just amazing. I mean, if you see Lupe Pintor today, you'd never know that. He was such a warrior. He doesn't have a mark on him. I saw him at the Hall of Fame in 2016 in Canastota, and the guy looks like a movie star. Just doesn't have a mark on him, which is incredible. When you go back and you watch the Gomez fight, I mean, the Gomez fight was just absolutely amazing how they just tore at each other. It was just a vicious fight, and I never saw anything like it. I don't think I'll ever see anything like it again.
Wow. Well, this weekend, we all know it's a big, big middleweight fight, and I've been told that one of your favorite fighters of all time is Bad Benny Briscoe.
Oh, you had to love Benny Briscoe. I mean, if you wanted to see an exciting fight, you saw Benny. I mean, I saw Benny once or twice before Russell started promoting, but when J. Russell Peltz started, he came to Benny and he said, would you come out of retirement? And Benny did. And all those fights that Benny had after he started fighting for Russell were just incredible. He was an incredible body puncher, always exciting. Whenever you saw Benny, you saw a great fight. And fans used to come to see him because they knew that, win or lose, Benny was going to be in a great fight. And people just used to come out all the time to see him. I mean, there was nothing like going to the Blue Horizon to see Benny Briscoe fight. It was just, an amazing experience. I used to drive down there all the time to see Benny fight. I loved him.
How would Benny Briscoe fare with some of the middleweights today, like Golovkin and Canelo? And you think he'd be right up in the mix with them? Let me put it this way. Benny would have been
competitive with anybody. I mean, he really would have been competitive with anybody. He might have beat Canelo and Golovkin. Benny was a heck of a body puncher. I mean, the young Benny Briscoe that beat Georgie Benton was just amazing, The Benny that fought for Russell Peltz was an older guy, but even still, he would have been competitive with Canelo, Golovkin, anybody because of the fact that he was such a great body puncher.
Harold, this is such an important fight this weekend, and we know the judges, a lot of scrutiny and a lot is riding on the judges' shoulders as they evaluate this matchup. If you could sit down with this weekend's judges, Adelaide Bird, Dave Moretti, and Don Trella before the fight, what advice would you give them, or would you even give them any advice?
Well, those three don't need any advice. They watch the fight pretty good, you know. I think they'll do a good job. I mean, you just, you have to call it the way you see it. Don't get nervous. Just call it the way it is, and they do that. Especially Moretti. He's been judging for so many years.
Well, Harold, it has been an absolute pleasure talking with you this morning. We're looking forward to hearing you on the broadcast and your scoring and the things that are going on during the fight. So we look forward to tuning in, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me, and enjoy the fight.
All right.
We will. Thank you.
Are you an elite athlete looking to take your training to an elite level? Then Porter High Performance Center in Las Vegas is your #1 spot. Our private training facility offers you high-altitude chambers, a boxing ring with telestrators, cryogenics tubs, helix machines, a multi-purpose weight machine, and more. Come and train like an elite champion with us at Porter High Performance Center. For more information, contact us on social media at Porter High Performance and through former world champion at Showtime Sean P. Are you an entrepreneur looking to find out where to start or develop a business plan? Are you looking to start a business or grow your business revenue? Are you a business owner that needs fresh new ideas or needs to solve challenges with strategy, marketing, or process? Red Beach Advisors is a management consulting group focused on helping entrepreneurs, startups, and companies build, grow, and scale. Contact Red Beach Advisors at info@redbeachadvisors.com or 424-247-6143. Red Beach Advisors helps companies build, grow, and scale through strategy, process, systems, and people. We are the experts. Contact us at 424-247-6143 or www.redbeachadvisors.com. WBC World Boxing Cares is a nonprofit charitable organization composed of compassionate volunteers under the guidance of the WBC. By sending world-class athletes into youth centers, hospitals, and orphanages, we bring a message of hope and inspiration to the children and their families, as well as donations appropriate for that particular institution and or event. World Boxing Cares is active in 164 countries under the WBC sanctioning umbrella. Look us up online at worldboxingcares.com and connect with us today. Big champions supporting little champions.
All right. The last thing I'm going to say about Canelo versus Golovkin is if you don't have money to lose, don't bet on this fight because I really do think it could go either way. So I know a lot of people hit me up all the time. They DM me. They message me. My friends call me from all over the world, all over the country. Who should I bet on? I'm not telling anybody who to put money on because that's not going to come back on me, Jay. So if you don't have money to lose, do not bet on this fight because you could 50% lose your money.
That's right. I ain't betting no money. I don't have no money to bet anyway, but I'm definitely not betting this weekend.
Well, listen, if anybody wants to play Know It or Blow It, or if anyone, we have about a good 15 minutes left, if anybody wants to come on and give us your Canelo Golovkin predictions, we would love to hear it. We would love to hear your breakdown and your prediction. I don't want to just hear, Canelo's going to win because La Raza. No, let us know who you're picking and why. Press 1, and we'll see you light up on the switchboard, and we'll bring you on. Jay, just, let me know if anyone's there, if anybody wants to speak their piece.
We got somebody there. No orale. RB already told you. Ooh, that sounded green. Good morning, 909-816. You're on with the Morning Punch-In Show. Who is this and where are you calling from?
My name is Marcos. I'm calling from San Diego.
What's up, Marcos?
Hi, Marcos.
What's happening?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I got my money on. I usually don't bet on fights, but this is such an exciting fight. We've been waiting for such a big fight in boxing like this. I bet $100 on Canelo, and then I got 2-1. And then I got 2-1 odds in my favor, so I put another 50 on Canelo. So I think I think you're right. There's a lot of factors that you got to take into consideration. My biggest, I'm leaning towards Canelo because of Triple G's last two performances. You know, he got hit a lot by Kell Brook, which lets you know a little bit about his defense, and then he went the full 12 with Jacobs in New York. So that makes me lean towards Canelo, and then obviously, you know, the resume on Canelo's side is a lot better. I'm Mexican, so I get turned off by Canelo's speeches in the ring, you know, because you like to hear a man of his word, you know. And I know there's a lot of politics, but nobody forces him to say those kind of things, you know. So I'm leaning towards Canelo. I think it goes full 12. I think because it's in Vegas, I think it'll go Canelo's way. But there's tons of stuff to think about, you know, because Triple G didn't go. I felt he didn't go toes with Lemieux, you know. So he is capable of having a more diverse, you know, boxing IQ. You know, I mean, there's so much that you have to think about this fight. But that's what I'm leaning towards.
Marcos, I like what you said there, how you said as a Mexican, you are Mexican, and you're rooting for Canelo, but you don't like what he says up until this point, the fights that he does in the ring without backing it up. When he fought Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., it seems like there was a huge portion of fans that were cheering for Chavez Jr. Who did you cheer for in that fight? And what is really like the feeling I know you don't speak for all Mexicans, but are you cheering? You said you're picking Canelo to win based on Triple G's performances, but can you elaborate on that? Why were so many people more siding with Chavez Jr.? Can you talk to us a little bit more about that?
I'm biased for Chavez. I went for Chavez Jr. because I'm biased. I'm a big, huge because I'm big RGBA. I'm like a big Mikey Garcia, Robert Garcia. I like their energy. I like their gym. I like their dad. I like, you know, it's just that whole RGBA movement is so positive, and it has people like me. I'm in my late 30s, and we haven't had something like that since Chavez Sr. I mean, people, Oscar, you got it's tricky with the Mexican culture because people didn't really get behind Oscar because he was born in America. So I think Mexicans didn't really get behind him like we should, because it took him a while to win me over. Eventually, I became an Oscar fan, but I mean, I grew up in my teens watching Chavez Sr. on pay-per-view all the time, you know. And I don't think we've had something like that to be that excited about since then. So this whole Mikey Garcia, and then, you know, this whole, you know, that they train Maidana, they train Brandon Rios. That whole movement is so positive for our culture. Going back to your question, I chose Chavez Jr., but not just because of the RGBA movement. I'm a huge underdog person. Sometimes I'll just go and vote with my heart because I want the guy that the deck is stacked against to win. I like upsets.
You like the underdog.
But that tells you more about me as a person than about who I think. Like this one, I'm just betting with my heart. You know, I'm too. Yeah. I usually don't bet, but this fight is so huge to the community. Like I'm betting with my friends at the gym. I'm betting with people at work. Like it's so big that it's like I mean I don't have a lot of money to spend either, but it's just so huge. You know,
this is really so good to hear, and I'm so glad you called. You know, to give us a perspective from the culture as a boxing fan. I mean, I really love that. And you know what? I love a good underdog story too. You know, I love rooting for the underdog. In this fight on Saturday, who do you think the underdog is? Hello? Yeah.
I think Triple G. From my perspective, I think Triple G is the underdog because he hasn't had the Canelo's had big performances, you know. I know Triple G sells out stadiums, but I think honestly Canelo's the A side. I think in terms of ticket sales and in terms of pay-per-view sales and in terms of how his career has been guided by Golden Boy, I think he's the A side. So I really think Triple G is the underdog, but not by a lot, because Triple G has a great story as well. I mean, he you know, we know what happened in Europe. You know, we know what happened, you know, when he met with Tom, and we know Abel Sanchez has been such a great, like, not only coach but like mentor for him. So I think just by a little bit, I think Triple G is the underdog. But another huge factor is that Canelo's lost his you know, he knows what it's like to lose. He has that feeling. Triple G. I mean, Abel's has said it himself. He hasn't hit somebody as hard as he can because he hasn't been tested. I think that's going to work against him because if you haven't been tested, we don't know what's going to happen if Canelo hurts him. We don't know how Triple G is going to react in that ring in that moment. So did Jake say that he was going to stop him in the 11th?
Yeah, he thinks he is. And you know what? That's another good point you brought up. You know, who has really hit Canelo that hard? When you look at who he's faced, he's fought really good guys. But, you know, Orlando Lara, pure boxer. Floyd Mayweather, pure boxer. Austin Trout, pure boxer. Who has really touched Canelo to the chin where we could say, yo, he could take a punch?
Yeah.
Right.
Ooh, this is going to be good. This is going to be good. I said earlier, can Canelo take this power? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a 50-50 fight. When he gets hit on the chin.
Yeah. I think it's a 50-50 because you could make 10 reasons why Canelo wins, and you can easily make 10 reasons why Triple G wins.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Sure. All right. Well, before we let you go, do you want to play some Know It or Blow It?
I'll give it a shot. Sure.
Okay. Today, I'm going to let you take your pick. We have a signed glove by Mike Tyson, brought to you by theboxinginsider.com, or we have a photograph. It's an 8x10 photo of Manny Pacquiao, and it is signed authentically by Manny Pacquiao. So if you win, you could take your pick, either a signed glove by Mike Tyson or a photo signed by Manny Pacquiao, okay?
All right.
All right. This is going to be multiple choice. Who holds the record? Okay. Who holds the record for being the oldest world champion in boxing? Is it George Foreman, Muhammad Ali, Bernard Hopkins, or Wilfredo Benitez? Who holds the record for being the oldest world champion in boxing? Foreman, Ali, Hopkins, or Benitez?
I'm going to narrow it down to Foreman or Hopkins.
Oh, you got to pick one.
I know. I'm just speaking out loud.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Foreman. I'm going to go with Foreman. That's my choice.
You should have went with Bernard Hopkins because Bernard Hopkins holds the record for being the oldest world champion in boxing.
That's all right.
All right. Thank you so much for calling from San Diego and for listening in. You really brought a lot of good stuff to the show today. We appreciate you.
No
Enjoy
problem.
the fight this weekend. All right.
Thank you. Bye.
Wow. I like a super informed fans. I like the fact that our show brings these fans out. I always want to know the temperature of how Mexican fans receive Canelo just based on that whole Chavez Jr. Canelo fight. So great insight. Thanks for calling in from San Diego, Marcos. We were trying to give you some prizes, but maybe next time.
All right, Jay, why don't you wrap us up and remind us what the fight schedule is this weekend. There's fights on Friday and Saturday.
Weekend fight schedule starting on September 15th, which is Friday, from Las Vegas, ESPN Deportes, and tape delayed on ESPN2. We've got Claudio Marrero versus Jesus Rojas for Marrero's WBA interim featherweight title. In the co-main event, Rashidi Ellis versus Juan Carlos Abril. Also taking place this weekend off television, Mike Lee is going to face Aaron Quantrill. Do it for me, RB. Quatrochi?
Quatrochi. Mike Lee versus Aaron
Quatrochi. Thank you, RB. So that's what we got going on Friday. On Saturday, the big night from Las Vegas, from the T-Mobile Arena, Gennady Golovkin versus Canelo Alvarez for Golovkin's WBA IBF title, but not the WBC. It will be vacant if Canelo wins. I can hold the belt. I keep telling the WBC and that one they put in the museum, just bring it on to Inglewood. I will keep good eyes on it. Also on the card,
they should let us give it away on the show. They should let us give it away on the show.
You know, girl, we would have to have an auction. We're gonna take some bids. But also in the co-main feature, Joseph Diaz still on the card, but now has a new opponent on 4 days' notice, Rafael Rivera. So he will be taking on Jojo Diaz in the co-main event. We don't know yet if it's still going to be a WBC featherweight eliminator. There was some talks that was in the air, whether Jojo's fight was still going to be a WBC eliminator. So we will wait to see what happens with that. I'm sure we'll find out today. And Diego De La Hoya versus Randy Caballero, Ryan Martin versus Francisco Roja, Virgil Ortiz versus Cesar Valenzuela, and Marlon Esparza, the First Lady of Golden Boy, against Araceli Palacios. Also happening on Saturday night, and maybe if you time it right, you can watch them both. From London, Billy Joe Saunders takes on Willie Monroe for Saunders' WBO middleweight title. Maybe the winner of Canelo Triple G gets the fight against Billy Joe Saunders. We don't know, but we know there's a fight going on, and it's a title fight. So great fight action. We are looking forward to being with you in Las Vegas, so make sure you're following Raging Babe and I on Twitter for all the good scoops this weekend. And back to you, Arby.
Yeah, all right. I have to point out Diego De La Hoya versus Randy Caballero. That fight has been flying under the radar. It's not getting the love that it should be getting, except from the diehards. The diehards really know that that's going to be a really, really good fight. So I think anybody who's buying the pay-per-view that's a casual for this fight, they're going to love Diego De La Hoya versus Randy Caballero. That's going to be a really good fight. And also that Virgil Ortiz versus Cesar Valenzuela fight, that 6-rounder that's on the undercard, that's going to be banging, okay? I've seen Cesar Valenzuela fight in Phoenix a few times. That's where he's from. He's going to bring it to that young prospect that Joel Diaz has out there in Indio.
Sure is.
So that's going to be another good one. Good undercard. Sucks what happened with Jojo Diaz. That's every matchmaker's worst nightmare, is to have a fighter get injured, 4 days before a fight. It's a nightmare. It's whew. All right, so I think that's it, Jay. I'm going to see you tomorrow in Las Vegas.
Woo-hoo!
We're going to turn up. We are going to be reporting live from Las Vegas.
Yes.
Today's show is brought to you by theboxinginsider.com, Porter High Performance Center, NationAutoWarranties.com, Champ Boxing Club, War Tape Brand, Bernie's Boxing, Red Beach Advisors, and the WBC Cares. Stay tuned. Follow us on Twitter. We're going to be doing pop-ups all weekend. We're going to be going live randomly and doing all types of cool things with you guys. So make sure you keep it locked. Make sure you're following Jay and Rage and Babe. And we'll talk to you soon. Enjoy the fights this Saturday. Make sure you buy the pay-per-view. Have a good one.